Welcome to the Wandering Synagogue, Episode 5. We're going to check out the congregation that now exists in Skokie, Illinois, called Kesser Maariv, and a few other names. That's because it's the result of a few congregations merging together all the way from the post-Civil War era in the Loop area through the Lower West Side, which would mean the West Bank of the Chicago River, to the Old West Side, which refers to the Douglas Park Independence Boulevard area, then to Rogers Park on the far north side of the city, and finally to its current location on the north end of Skokie. There are only two buildings we can show of this amalgamation of congregations. This one is on the 6400 block north of Greenview, just north of Devon Avenue in the Rogers Park area. It is not a church building now, but rather a business association. Its early history begins around 1866, it being Congregation Beth HaMedrash HaGadol. Existing synagogues offered at the time. In 1867, B'nai Jacob merged with Beth HaMedrash to become Beth HaMedrash U'B'nai Jacob, or B'nai Yaakov. A few years later, several members of the congregation wanted the synagogue to move to a better area, especially because of the fear of having another Great Chicago Fire, to what was then considered the South Side, or 14th Street. The synagogue had been located near the intersection, or close to it, of what would now be considered Madison and LaSalle. But there had been a previous agreement that the congregation would not move. By the way, the last couple pictures we've shown are of its current building in Skokie. So the congregation split up. The one that had moved to the south side would eventually move even further south, and that would be called Beth HaMedrash HaGadol South, whereas the core group returned to their previous location. It should also be noted that Zemansky, who had helped start the congregation, also owned property on that block. This same Beth HaMedrash HaGadol is the congregation in 1870 that lost some members because they had permitted a person wearing a straw hat to lead the services. The disenchanted group started another synagogue, which eventually today has evolved into Anshe Shalom on Melrose in the Lakeview area. Let's turn our attention to another one of the synagogues that merged together. In April of 1901, Congregation Tiferes Israel Anshe Luchnik began construction on a new synagogue building near State and 14th Street. That would put it on the fringes again of the south side. Construction was budgeted at $10,000. Here is a drawing of that synagogue in the Chicago Tribune from that time period. At some point in the early 1920s, it merged with Beth HaMedrash HaGadol. It was located in the old Jewish west side of the city at the southeast corner of Douglas Boulevard and St. Louis. That building no longer exists and is replaced by a new church building. On the far north side of the city, in the Rogers Park area, Congregation Kesser Maariv bought the property and built the building shown here in 1927. In September of 1955, the merger of the West Side Synagogue Beth HaMedrash with Kesser Maariv was finalized, where they all then now occupied the building on the 6400 block of Greenview. It would be now called Beth HaMedrash HaGadol Anshe Luchnik Kesser Maariv. By the way, Luchnik is an area in Lithuania, so those who started that synagogue came from that area. That brings us to 1994, when this congregation decided to move to Skokie. For the first couple of years, they met in a house that was provided by the rabbi, and eventually built the structure shown here. That ends this episode of The Wandering Synagogue. We hope to provide additional episodes in the near future. See you soon.